Gentlemen, it gives me an immense pleasure to see you all on this special day by marking the beginning of the 4th Management Undergraduate Research Session by keeping a milestone in the history of the Faculty of Management Studies, Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka. All education is about developing, learning, and inquiry. But as a university, we focus upon areas at the boundaries of knowledge, and we work to refine those methods of reasoning and understanding which help us to push back those boundaries. To ensure the knowledge generation and dissemination process, the Faculty of Management Studies, Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka takes pride in organizing the 4th Management Undergraduates Research Session in collaboration with Young Scientists Forum. The 4th MURS is considered an important event in the 26th anniversary activity calendar, which will be held on 18th November 2022 under the theme of Fostering Agility, Confronting the Uncertainty. So we would like to welcome you all to the first session on how to write an extended abstract conducted by the Management Undergraduate Research Session 2022 in association with Sage Publishers. With a great respect, let me first welcome the main speaker of the session, Professor D. N. Jayantha, co-editors-in-chief of the South Asian Journal of Marketing, published by Emerald Publishing, managing editor of the Asian Journal of Finance and South Asian Journal of Tourism and Hospitality, published by the Faculty of Management Studies, Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka. Today, he will be discussing on how to write an extended abstract. With gratitude, let me also welcome Professor Atunjanapala, Dean of the Faculty of Management Studies, Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka, Professor M.S.M. Aslam, Chair of the Research and Publication Unit, Faculty of Management Studies, Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka. Then, with gratitude, let me welcome the Conference Chair of MURS 2022, Dr. Rasika Priyankara, and Conference Secretary, Mrs. Vidyalini Muthusamy, and all the organizing team members of MURS 2022 who supported a lot in making this event a great success. Then, with great respect, let me also welcome the respected audience, mainly our academics from the universities worldwide, senior professors, senior lecturers, students, and researchers are welcome to the program for making the session lively. Further, I would like to welcome the main sponsor of the MURS 2022, Dialogue Sri Lanka, and digital media partners, Ogilvy, Sunday Observer, Daily News, Dinamina, Silumina, and Rupahini Sri Lanka. With the same respect, I would like to welcome the academic partners of the event, Sage Publishers, ICMR, and AHEAD. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Rasika Priyankara, the chair of the 4th MURS 2022, to introduce today's resource person. If I introduce Dr. Rasika Priyankara, Dr. Rasika Priyankara is the former head of the Department of Business Management of the Faculty of Management Studies, and he is a senior lecturer in the Faculty of Management Studies. Also, he serves as a visiting lecturer of the Faculty of Applied Sciences and Faculty of Social Sciences and Languages of the Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka. He has completed his first degree from the University of Sri Jayawardhanapura, specialized in business administration, and he has completed his PhD in enterprise management from Wuhan University of Technology, China. Mainly, his research focuses on organizational behavior and industrial relations. Rasika sir, it's over to you.
So thank you so much, Kavinda. So I wish all of you a very beautiful evening. And in this pre-conference research competency development program of the 4th Management Undergraduate Research Session in collaboration with Young Scientists Forum, I'm honored to introduce our resource person, Professor Jayantha N Dewasiri. Professor Dewasiri is attached to the Department of Accountancy and Finance, Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka, and he serves as the Honorary Secretary and the Chairman of Education and Research at the Sri Lanka Institute of Marketing. He holds a Doctor of Philosophy in Finance from the University of Colombo and MSc in Applied Finance from the University of Sri Jayawardhanapura, Sri Lanka, and then BA Business from Glyndon University, UK. Further, he is a member of the Sri Lanka Institute of Marketing, Chartered Institute of Marketing, a fellow member of the Chartered Management Institute, and a Chartered Management Accountant. After serving 17 years in the industry, he joined academia, and he is a pioneer in applying triangulation research approaches in the management discipline. He is currently serving as the co-editor-in-chief of the South Asian Journal of Marketing, published by Emerald Publishing, and he is a senior associate editor of the FIIB Business Review, published by Sage Publishing, and he is the managing editor of the South Asian Journal of Tourism and Hospitality, published by the Faculty of Management Studies. He has been awarded for research excellence several times, including University of Michigan International Mixed Method Scholarship Award, grand winner of the IIARI Luminary Award 2021 in Asia for research excellence, and he's the grand winner of the Dean's Award of Research Excellence at the Faculty of Management Studies, Sabaragama University of Sri Lanka in 2021. And he has won several best paper awards at many conferences. He has published extensively in top-tier research journals, including Managerial Finance, Qualitative Research in Financial Markets, Journal of Public Affairs, International Journal of Qualitative Methods, and so forth. He is the main contributor to the introductory team of the data triangulation approaches to finance discipline. Recently, he has been accredited as a fellow chartered manager by the Chartered Institute of Management UK. So, considering his valuable contribution to research and academia, Emerald Publishing UK has appointed him as the brand ambassador for its South Asian region. So today, we have one of the best persons to let you know about the art of writing extended abstracts. So I believe that every one of you will get the maximum out of this session. And without wasting much time, let's move to the program. And please welcome Professor Jayantha N Dewasiri. Professor Dewasiri, it's over to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rasika Priyankara, for your kind introduction. Good evening, everyone. Let me share the PPT first. Wish you very good evening, everyone. I take it as a great pleasure and honor to deliver this session for the potential participants of the Management Undergraduate Research Session, MURS 2022, conducted by the Faculty of Management Studies, Sabaragama University of Sri Lanka. First, I would like to thank the organizing committee led by Dr. Rasika Priyankara for having an awareness session on abstract writing before the conference and also inviting me in order to deliver this session. Today, we are going to discuss one of the timely important topics, that is handy tips on how to write an extended abstract. In this session, I'm going to discuss the winning formula for a conference publication, basically emphasizing on what to focus on, how to differentiate your research, tips for the extended abstract, structure, and also finally, I will emphasize on the cover letter as well. There is no magic and luck in scientific publications. All of your hard work would pave the way towards top-tier publication. Before I start the session, I would like to ask one simple question. What do you mean by an extended abstract? Some researchers, they say that it is an expanded version of an abstract. But actually, it is not. It is not an extended version of an abstract. Because an extended abstract should contain references, comparisons to related work, proofs of key theorems, and other details expected in a research paper, but not in an abstract. So an extended abstract can be considered as a short version of a manuscript and can be considered as a mini paper. But most of the time, we can see that this extended abstract that does not contain a literature section and future directions as in a full paper. That is the main difference between full paper and an extended abstract. So we can consider extended abstract as a mini paper. Extended abstract can be considered as an advertisement of your final product, which is your manuscript. So as you already aware, organizations basically, they spend millions on their advertisement and they spend years on developing the advertisement. So think how much time you are allocating in designing of your extended abstract, which is the advertisement of your study. Most of the time, you tend to cut and paste most important things from your manuscript or from your dissertation or thesis. And within less than 1 hour, you are trying to complete the same. Do you think that it is enough for your advertisement? I suggest spending some valuable time for developing your abstract, as it is the advertisement of your final product, and it should be sellable to the right audience. So if you are making a product, it should be sellable. So meaning that you should have a good advertisement on it. So advertisement is the extended abstract. Having decided to attend a certain conference, you are ticketed to receiving a presentation at the conference, that is the extended abstract. Most of the time, we can see that if your abstract is accepted into the conference, you may be asked to produce the full paper. But there are conferences, those who are proceeding only with the extended abstract as well. So what are the strategies in writing and submitting successful extended abstract? Is there a winning strategy for the same? That is a question we all have. So I could remember that when I was an early career researcher who was publishing in conferences, I also had the same question. Is there a winning strategy for a conference or a journal? I would like to shed some lights on a few key points before discussing a winning strategy, because it is essential to know the basics before discussing the winning strategy. The abstracts are due many months before the conference normally. Most abstracts are in work in progress and conclusions have not been reached. So you have to make sure that at least some research is ready to present by the time of the conference. That is really essential. Another one important thing is that you should not submit an abstract on research that has not even been started. Such abstracts, we call it as abstract, and generally it is unethical, particularly if you are requesting an oral presentation. It is really unethical if you have not started your study. So preparing an abstract, that is unethical. Second, you should not submit the extended abstracts or research that has already been submitted elsewhere. It could be either a journal or conference. You have to make sure that it is not published elsewhere at the time of the conference when you are making the presentation. It is really essential. It reflects the genuineness of your career. Third, you have to ensure that you have the right resources in order to attend the conference. So you should not fill up the space in the conference program in place of someone who is definitely going to attend. If you make a habit of submitting abstracts and not showing up, so conference committees, they will wise up and not include you in future conferences. That will harm your academic dignity as a researcher. Well, as a researcher, author, and editor, now I would like to discuss on a winning strategy for a top-tier conference publication. While achieving some definitive or decisive competitive advantages among the peer submissions in conferences. So is there a winning strategy? That is a question we basically ask most of the time. Assume that you are working in the industry and you need to achieve a competitive advantage. What are the strategies you can use in order to achieve the same? Are there any strategies? So if you discuss it, so you will come up with the answer that yes, we can use Porter's generic strategies such as differentiation and focus. In the industry, most of the products are being differentiated from the competitor products. It can be either through product benefits, additional features, innovation, it can be differentiated. In addition to that, in the industry, we can see that before marketing a product, so you are focusing on the audience. So identifying the right customer, that is really essential. That is the focus strategy. So you are focusing on the audience, focusing on the product, focusing on the advertising. So we can see these strategies are being applied in the industry. In addition to that, we can see that industry people, they use blue ocean strategies through continuous innovations and white ocean strategies through competitor collaborations. Similarly, here I argue that we can use the same strategies in publishing a top-tier conference. How we can use these strategies for a research paper or for an extended abstract? That is a question we do have in our mind. As you can see on the Venn diagram here, so you can see that the strategy here is to enhance the focus and differentiation in order to increase the intersection, this intersection that represent the decisive competitive advantages or definitive competitive advantages. So how we can differentiate, how we can increase the focus? So you can differentiate among the peer submissions. You can differentiate your manuscript. You can differentiate your findings. You can differentiate your methodology. You can focus on the audience. You can focus on your extended abstract. You can focus on your advertisement, which is the extended abstract. So you can apply these strategies together in order to enhance this intersection that reflect the decisive competitive advantage. So when you are enhancing this intersection, applying these strategies together, so it will pave the way toward for a contribution or originality or increase in the novelty in your research that will pave the way towards a top-tier conference publication or journal publication. So this is the strategy where we have to apply in order to have a top-tier conference publication. In addition to focus and differentiation strategies, along with continuous innovation, we can have the first move advantage most of the time. If you are applying differentiation, focus, along with the continuous innovation, that will pave the way towards most of the time first move advantage. Therefore, here I argue that you need to develop a definitive competitive advantage in order to successfully provide a superior value we call it as value proposition to a specific audience. You have three audiences, mainly conference organizing committee, that is the first audience, then conference goers who are attending the conference. In addition to that, online readers. These three are the main audience. So you have to make a value proposition for them. Otherwise, how you can sell your product? Here, I would like to explain the ways and means of using each strategy in publishing in a top tier conference. The first strategy, that is how to differentiate. That is a question we do have in our mind always. As researchers, when we are doing research, we always think about what are the ways we can differentiate our study. So it is possible to differentiate your manuscript or extended abstract from the other previous studies in order to create the originality or contribution of your study. For an example, you can proceed with contextual differentiation. What do you mean by contextual differentiation? So here you have to make sure that whether there are any other studies conducted in the same study, same context, in investigating the same phenomenon. So you have to make sure that if there are studies conducted investigating the same phenomenon in the same context, you have to differentiate your study from those of the studies in order to create the originality. We call it as contextual differentiation. In addition to that, you can have methodological innovation, and you can differentiate findings of your study from the previous studies conducted in the same context, and not only in the same context, but also in different contexts in same phenomena. So methodological innovations, I would like to share one of my life experiences with regard to methodological innovation. What do you mean by methodological innovation? Basically, methodological innovations are the original contributions we can make using innovations in scientific methods. Can we have innovations in our scientific methods? What do you think? Yes, we can have innovations in our scientific method. So in 2014, when I was doing my PhD at the University of Colombo, as an early career researcher, I was thinking about this part, methodological innovation. So I conducted my study in dividend policy in corporate finance. So dividend policy, that is an investigated phenomenon across the past 7 decades. We can see that there are thousands of research papers investigating the dividend puzzle. Dividend puzzle is that why do you companies pay dividends and what are the determinants of corporate dividend policy. So I was thinking about having a methodological innovation in 2014. But unfortunately, I was not able to find any methodologies, innovative methodologies applied in the finance discipline. So what I did was, I have gone through other disciplines such as HR, marketing, accountancy, economics. So I have gone through all those sub-disciplines in the management and commerce discipline. So I realized that there are 3 methodological approaches we can utilize. So those are quantitative approach, qualitative approach, those are mono method or single method, and also multi-method, that is mixed method approach. So I was thinking that there could be some other approaches we can utilize. So thinking out of the box, I basically searched through medicine, nursing, engineering, agriculture, research. So fortunately, I was able to find some research articles published in the nursing and medical discipline highlighting some innovative approaches such as data triangulation, investigative triangulation, theoretical triangulation, multiple triangulation, and we call mixed method approach methodological triangulation. So then what I did was, I studied these 5 approaches and realized that we can utilize data triangulation approach in our study. But there was a question in 2014 when I was doing my PhD. Question is that as an early career researcher, if I use a innovative approach, will there be a kind of a acceptance from the research world? As I'm young researcher, early career researcher, so who cannot make an impact to the discipline. So I realized that I should have a collaboration with an eminent researcher in the field. So in 2015, I was able to have a collaboration with American University in order to do our study in data triangulation, using data triangulation. And we were able to complete our study in 2017 using the data triangulation approach. And that is the first study we utilized the data triangulation approach in the finance history. So based on the methodological innovation applied in the my PhD study, so University of Michigan, they awarded me one of the most prestigious mixed method international scholarship. So I was fortunate enough to learn research methodology from Professor John W. Creswell in 2018. So why I shared that story is that in order to motivate our young career, early career researchers, so you should think out of the box when you are basically investigating a research problem. You have to think out of the box. Don't do the things all the researchers are doing. So don't think about reinventing the wheel. So think out of the box and have a novelty. So in addition to that, in addition to the methodological innovation and findings from the previous studies, so we can basically have the first move advantage if you apply differentiation, focus, and innovation together in a single study. So it will basically pave the way towards achieving definitive competitive advantages for a top tier publication. So last, I would like to emphasize that the differentiation can be made through collaboration as well. The question is with whom to collaborate, how we can collaborate and with whom to collaborate. So you can think about collaborating with your peer researchers. You can think about collaborating with your supervisors. You can think about collaborating with foreign researchers. So basically there is a gap here in Sri Lanka and also in the South Asia. We cannot see that collaborations, they do not see as a winning strategy. But if you take the giant researchers in the world, they take collaborations as a winning strategy. The reason is that when you make collaborations, so there is a synergistic effort in doing the research study. So as I always state, 1 + 1 is not equal to 2. It is always more than 2 because the synergistic effort is there. So through collaborations, you can improve your study based on different expertise. Some are quantitative expert, some are qualitative expert, some are experts in mixed methods, some are expert in the respective discipline. If you can collaborate for a common goal of a top tier publication, that will provide a definitive competitive advantage in achieving the same. So the next strategy, that is the focus. So I'll discuss what to focus, when to focus, and your manuscript structure, extended abstract structure under the focus strategy. So most of you would like to know what are the do's and don'ts when writing an extended abstract. So what is the format of the extended abstract? So what are the strategies we can utilize in writing that? So we are going to discuss it under the focus strategy. So the question is, what to focus? First, it is required to focus on a suitable conference when writing the extended abstract. Why should we focus on a suitable conference? The reason is that there are specific and unique guidelines for each conference, so that the authors need to focus on one particular conference in order to reduce the time required for a revision in a later stage, because these submission guidelines are different from conference to conference. That is simple as that. How to select a suitable conference? That is a question for most of the authors. How to select a suitable conference? First, you have to consider the aims and scope of the conference. If that suits your study, you can move forward to the next step. Next, you have to check on the hosting institution and their collaborative partners, their reputation, their recognition, website, original contact details, as there are ample of fake, predatory or clone conferences worldwide. In addition to that, you can focus on published articles from the previous edition of the conference when selecting the best outlet for your extended abstract. In addition to that, it is required to focus on the study's quality than the quantity. That is really essential. In South Asia, we can see that most researchers, they basically focus on quantity than the quality. However, I would like to emphasize that it is better to focus on 2 top-tier publications than 10 to 12 poor quality conference publications a year. In addition to that, it is essential to focus on the extended abstract as well. Now we are coming to the point where we need to discuss the extended abstract in detail. So what to focus in an extended abstract? Authors here, as authors, you have to see whether the manuscript follow a scientific approach instead of a nonsense approach. When we are evaluating extended abstracts, we can see that some of the research, they do not follow a scientific approach. Editors, they basically see whether the manuscript focus on recent and contextual literature in order to differentiate it from the other studies conducted in the same phenomenon and also in the same context sometimes. In addition to that, your authors, they should recheck whether the extended abstract follow the submission guidelines. That is really essential. Most of the time, we can say that authors, they do not follow the submission guidelines. That will be a reason for a desk rejection, rather proceeding with a review. So your extended abstract is subjected to be rejected. In addition to that, you have to check whether the manuscript have a clear focus emphasizing originality and implications to the practice or society. Because as organizers, we tend to see some kind of implications to the practice, society, or even for the policymakers. If all of these questions or answers are yes, you can submit your extended abstract to a conference. Otherwise, you have to revise your study further. You have to revise your extended abstract further. In addition to that, at last, this is not the last thing actually. So you have to focus on the right audience. In marketing, we state that that is the first thing. Why is that? So you have to focus on the right audience. So identifying the right audience is essential because they are your customers. They are your readers and they will ultimately cite you. If you are basically marketing a product in the industry, so you basically tend to identify what are the consumer behavior. So what are their needs and wants? So you identify the audience. Similar to that, you have to identify the audience when writing your extended abstract. There are basically likely to be 3 types of audiences for the abstract. So your single abstract may have to satisfy multiple audiences, each with their own purpose for reading the abstract. That is really challenging. So satisfying 3 audiences at one occasion, that is really difficult. So what is the first group, first audience of your extended abstract? The first group is the conference organizers. They are interested in reading the abstract to determine first if you will be accepted into the conference, and second, in your presentation warrants an oral or post presentation. So these audience organizers, they will see whether there is a contribution in your study. They will look at that. So you have to satisfy that audience. Second, the second group, that is to see your abstract, is the conference goers. Who are the conference goers? They may see the abstract in the conference volume or online. This group basically reads your abstract in order to determine whether they are interested in attending your talk. Whether to attend your talk, it will be determined by the quality of your work. So the second group, second audience, that is the conference goers. The third group, that is online goers. So this is basically, they may see the abstract in the conference in online mode. This online audience, that is really essential. You have to satisfy them. The reason is that these online readers, they are the real customers who will read your work and who will cite your work. So you have to satisfy this third audience as well. So if you have done a good job, you are subjected to receiving invitation from good journals if your advertisement is really good. If your extended abstract is really good, so you are subjected to receiving invitation from good journals in order to submit your full paper. So balancing these 3 audiences with a single abstract, it is really challenging. So during the remain session, I explore how to satisfy the first group, conference organizers, and I will touch upon how to also inform and attract the second and third group as well. As the next part, I would like to emphasize more on what not to focus. So far, we have discussed a winning strategy that consisted with differentiation and focus. So far, we discussed the differentiation, and also we discussed about the focus. Under the focus, we focus on the manuscript, we focus on the audience, we focus on the advertisement. Next, I would like to shed some lights on what not to focus. Researchers should not focus on predatory, fake, or clone conferences that will harm their academic integrity and reputation. The researchers basically they choose such predatory or fake conferences due to lack of knowledge and quick publications. Here, I would like to shed some lights or recommend a simple plan for researchers to steer clear of predatory conferences that involve doing your homework to ensure the hosting institution's credibility and reputation. So how to check predatory, fake or clone conferences? That is a question for most of us. In order to check that, we do have a checklist here. You can see the checklist. So conference invitation sent by unsolicited email. It is sent to group of people. Sometimes it goes to spam folder in your email. In addition to that, when you visit the website, you can see that this is a poorly made website. There are so many grammatical and spelling errors in the website. If there are grammatical and spelling errors in the website, it seems that is fake or predatory conference. In addition to that, in most of the conferences, we cannot see some reliable contact information. Most of the time, they use Gmails, Yahoo emails. They do not provide some kind of authenticity. In addition to that, there is no refund policy for registration fees in these conferences. In addition to that, we can see that these conferences are not listed on the website of an academic society or publisher that is claimed as a sponsor. If you're claiming that this is as a sponsor, it should be in public. So you can see that our academic partner for these MURS, that is Sage Publishing. If you go to Sage website and their social media pages, you can see that they are continuously promoting these MURS, meaning that the conference is listed in the website, which we have collaborations, meaning that there is not fake, predatory or clone conference. In addition to that, we can see that there are some overly broad scope in conferences. We can see that we receive thousands of mails in a year in order to attend conferences. We can say that there are some conferences, they are asking to submit papers in diverse disciplines like medicine with management, with engineering. So they are basically overly broad scope they do have. In that case, it is a suspicious predatory conference. You have to check the information on their web. In addition to that, the organizer also organizes numerous conferences in many different fields held at the same time in the same or nearby venues. This is with special reference to maximizing their revenue. So you can see that they are focusing on revenue generation rather contributing towards knowledge distribution, dissemination of knowledge. So if the primary focus of the conference is revenue maximization instead of knowledge dissemination, that is a suspicious conference. In addition to that, we can see some conferences that has never held before. So that is a suspicious conference. You have to go through that and check all the factors in this checklist with regard to that conference. In addition to that, you can see that some conferences, they are very reliable, very reliable. So within 3 days, they accept the papers. Too little time between the submission deadline and the conference for the proper peer review. So if there is no adequate time in order to review, so meaning that is a suspicious predatory conference. So by following this process, you can avoid predatory conferences. The decision to submit should be based on extensive discussions with the co-authors and experts in the field. So I already stated that we should mainly focus on the extended abstract itself. Now I would like to come to the main topic today. Let's discuss the abstract structure to have better understanding on do's and don'ts when writing an extended abstract. So as you can see here, an extended abstract consists of title, authors, keywords are there. In addition to that, main text is there, acknowledgement is, if any, and references are there. Sometimes in most of the extended abstracts, they ask provide keywords at the end. That is their preference. That is their preference. In MURS also, we expect that you will provide 5 keywords at the end. That is depending on the conference guidelines. So there is a maximum word count for this extended abstract. For the MURS, it is around 1100 to 1300, if I have not mistaken. If I am wrong, please correct it. So I request the organizing committee at the end, you can correct it if I am wrong. So maximum word count for an extended abstract, it should be in between 1500 to 2000 maximum. It should be in between 3 to 5 pages maximum. So for each section, there is a word limit. Word limit. For the introduction, in MURS, we expect that you will write up to 300 words. So word limit is 300. So for the method section, we expect that you will not exceed 200 words. Research, finding and discussion, in order to have a good discussion, so we allocated 400 words. We assigned 400 words for that. Conclusion and implications, you have to write with a limit of 200. So that is the limitation for the MURS, if I have not mistaken. In addition to that, you have to provide some key references, not all the references, key references. Key references meaning that most essential, most suitable, most appropriate references, 5 to 6 references. Now, I would like to focus one by one. So you may have questions on how to develop the title, how to write the introduction, how to write the method section, how to write the results and discussion. What is the difference between results and the discussion? So what should we write in the conclusion and implications? What are the do's and don'ts? What are the pitfalls in writing introduction section? Here you can see there is no literature review part. So why is that? What do you think? Most of the conferences in most of the extended abstracts, so literature review is not included in the extended abstract. What could be the reason for that? Any answer? What do you think?
Space constraints, or?
Yeah, it can be due to space constraints. In addition to that, I would like to shed some lights on it as well. What is the final outcome of the literature review?
Identifying gap, research gap.
Yes, of course. The final outcome. Yes, go ahead. Yes. You were trying to tell something.
Yes, the need of the study, that is.
Yes, of course. So our expectation from literature review is that identification of the problem, identifying the research gaps, identifying the conceptual model, if it is a quantitative model, and complete the operationalization if it is a quantitative one. So those are the 4 areas or 4 outcome of the literature review. So you can have this at the introduction and also in the method section. So we have to limit it to 1,500 to 2,000 word count and 3 to 5 pages. So essential part of the literature review, that is the outcome of the literature review, we can have it in the introduction, highlighting what are the research gaps. What is the research problem? You can justify it. You can rationalize it in the introduction. So that's why 300 to 400 word count is there in the introduction. So thank you very much for your informative and insightful answers. So now I'm going to discuss on developing your title. Starting from the title, I'm going to discuss the title. So Dr. Raja, you're asking about the PPT. So I will ask our organizing committee in order to share the PPT after the session.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Developing your title. That is one of the most important things when developing your standard abstract. Developing your title is an opportunity to gain readers' attention. It is like the brand name of your product. You know that organizations, they spend millions and years in developing brand names. So why can't you spend some valuable time in developing your title? That is which is the brand name of your product. Here, you have to remember that readers are the reviewers and authors who will comment and cite your standard abstract or your article. If they are the one who will cite and read, so first impression will be lasted for long period. In order to have a good first impression, so you have to have a good brand name. So you have to develop a good title. Hence, this is the first instance where you can gain a positive impression. Therefore, you should spend some time in developing an eye-catching and meaningful title. You have to keep the title more informative and concise. As reviewers, we check whether the title is specific and whether it reflects the content of the manuscript. In addition to that, as editors, we hate titles that make no sense or fail to represent the subject matter adequately. So we hate such titles. You are investigating something, the topic is something else. It should be eye-catching, but there should be meaning. You have to avoid technical jargons in developing your title. You should avoid abbreviations in developing your title. We as authors would like to have larger reader base so that we have to put it into layman's language where everyone can understand what it is all about. That is really essential. Here, I would like to give you a tip. You have to discuss with your supervisors, your peer researchers, your superiors, and make some collaborations if they add value to your research. From their advice, you can develop the title, more meaningful and more concise title. So next, I would like to discuss something on keywords. We can discuss it at the last stage, but I would like to have it at this stage. So basically, keywords that can be considered as the labels of your manuscript. If you are doing a product, keywords are the labels that provide you a better visibility. In order to have a better visibility, so you should have better labels. That basically help you to find your article from a dozens of research articles available on the databases. I would like to ask you one simple question. Would you like to have more readability and more citations for your extended abstract or for your manuscript? Most of the researchers ask this question from me. So how to increase the citations? How to increase the readers? Do you have that question in your mind? Yes. Every researcher, they do have that question in their mind. There are two things we can do in order to enhance the visibility and also citations of a particular researcher. One thing is that you have to enhance the visibility of your research. How to enhance the visibility of your research? So you have to promote it through different medias. That media could include social media. You can promote it through social media. Kudos, you can promote it through research platforms such as Google Scholar, ResearchGate, academia.com, Publons. So if you do not have profiles, make a profile today. ORCID, those are the databases that collect your information. Make profiles, have a better visibility. So then when researchers, they search using keywords so that your research will come up on the search engine optimization, because availability of your research is very high. It is available in many databases. There are restrictions in adding your research in these databases sometimes. ResearchGate, so you need to have, if it is not open access journal, so if a subscription is needed to access the full paper, so there are some restrictions. So you need to have approval from those databases. And in the meantime, when the paper is getting accepted, you can ask the editors and also backend officers who are basically dealing with your manuscript in order to save your manuscript in your databases like university repository and so on. So that thing we cannot see from the researchers. You have to do so. You have to do so. So we were discussing about the keywords. So I have discussed some major points from out of the topic. So sorry about that, but we need to discuss how to increase the visibility. So if the keywords are labels, so you have to spend some more valuable time on developing your keywords. To have an impact, you must improve the search engine optimization. Search engine results are generated based on titles, abstract, and keywords of your extended abstract or article. If it is generated, the search engine results are generated using keywords, meaning that you have to spend some valuable time on the keywords. Most of the time, what you are doing is you are just cutting and paste some keywords from the manuscript. But now onwards, you have to determine that keywords are essential. That is a labeling of your product. You have to spend some valuable time on it. Meaning that if you want to have a higher appearance, higher readability, higher downloads, and higher citations, you have to use right keywords that is most relevant to your study. The keyword should be from the abstract itself. So here you have to put yourself into researcher's shoes. Avoid jargons. It is not all about single words. You can even use some phrases. Think internationally. Think out of the box. For an example, if you are doing a research in United States of America, so if you need to include United States of America, since the study is conducted in that context, what do you have to do? You have to think. You have to think that basically whether the globe is using United States of America or USA. if the USA, that term is widely used, so what you have to do? You have to add USA as the keyword, not United States of America. So there is an art of writing keywords. Here, there is a tip for the authors. Once I share these slides with you, you can go through this YouTube video. So they are discussing about importance of the keywords. Next, I would like to discuss the introduction part of your research. Introduction part of your extended abstract. Introduction, that is a chance to convince your readers on the importance of your work. Here, basically, you have to describe the research gaps, emphasizing on the research problem. If there are existing articles addressing the same question, what you have to do is you have to emphasize on its main limitations while highlighting what are you going to achieve. Even you can differentiate your study from the previous studies. Here you have to discuss the rationale in comparison to the recently conducted studies in order to make the originality or novelty in your research or in your extended abstract. We as editors basically hate references relevant to the work or inappropriate judgments on your own achievements. We hate that. Now, I would like to discuss some pitfalls of the introduction. Are there any pitfalls of the introduction? There are some pitfalls of the introduction. Most of the articles we received are basically with lengthy introductions, sometimes more than the word limit. You have to limit your instruction into 300 words if you are submitting your abstract, extended abstract, to the MURS. So you should not exceed that limit. So 10% exceed of 10%, that is justifiable, that is acceptable, not more than that. You can either have 10% more, 10% less, that is fine, but not more than that, not less than that. In addition to that, we can see the introduction with too many subheadings, such as problem statement, then research questions, then research objectives, then significance of the study, limitations of the study. Too many subheadings are there in the introduction. It seems that this part is copied from a thesis or dissertation. You cut and paste everything in the introduction. So you have a limit. So do not do that. I request you not to use too many words and too many subheadings. You can have only one heading, that is introduction. I don't encourage subheadings if there are no special cases. Introduction is not a history lesson. It is not a history lesson. This has happened, this has happened. This is a story, this is the history. That is not a history lesson. You have to keep readers' interest from the beginning of your research. You have to make the story, but not the history. Another pitfall of writing introduction is that some researchers tend to have a mixed bag of introduction with results, discussion, conclusion thrown in good measure. So they think that if I add that thing, add some discussion, add some conclusion at the introduction, that will add value. So at the beginning of the research, when the organizers or editors, when they are reading, so they will basically amaze with my results. But you have to keep sections separately. That's why sections, we have provided sections separately to ensure that the manuscript flows logically from one section to the next. So you have to include the right thing in the right place, at the right place. That is really essential when writing an extended abstract. In most of the extended abstracts, we can see that it uses the used car salesman field. What do you mean by used car salesman field? So you are selling a used car. You are selling a used car. So you are doing the same thing what other researchers did, but you are trying to do a cut and polish in order to show that your article has an original look. See, I have a good manuscript, a good extended abstract. To showcase that, sometimes you tend to use some excessive words such as novel, first time, first ever in this context, and so forth. So when we analyze research papers and also extended abstract, we see that from the authors, they tell that this is the first ever study conducted in this phenomenon, in this context. But remember that editors and reviewers are the experts in the field. If they got to know that your claim is not correct, that will be the end of your story. Hence, be genuine, be ethical, claim only what you can claim. That is the tip from me from the introduction section. The next section in your extended abstract, that is method section. So I have to highlight in the introduction. So there is a word limit in MURS. We expect that it will not exceed 300 words. Method section. So this is one of the most important sections in your extended abstract. The methodology section should capture a brief methodology on what and how did you conduct your study. The details that should be on summary form, but the readers should be able to reproduce your research employing the same approach. They will be able to reproduce employing the same approach. It should be summary form, but relevant information should be there in order to reproduce the same. This is not a, here I would like to emphasize this thing for the betterment of early career researchers. Here, this is not a correct place to enlighten on broader terms, such as research philosophies like ontology, epistemology, and then again approaches like induction, deduction. So this is not a correct place. You should not discuss the philosophical background in the method section, not only in the extended abstract, but also in a manuscript. Because the researchers, the readers, by looking at your strategy, if the strategy is survey, we know that that is from quantitative paradigm. So we know the paradigmatic differences. What are the differences? What are the assumptions? We know that. So no need to have a philosophical underpinning. So that is not required. But you have to highlight on the method you followed. What is the research process you followed? What is the sample size? What is the technique you use? Data collection procedure. How did you collect your data? If there are interviews conducted, how long interviews were conducted? How many interviews? What is the sampling technique for the interviews? So you can elaborate more about emphasizing why is it appropriate, why this method is appropriate, what did you do, and so on. This is the place where you have to enlighten on the research process. That is really important. You have to remember that reviewers, they criticize incomplete and incorrect methods, so that you have to have a support from a methodological expert if you need any clarification, because we all are not methodological experts. So that's why methodological experts are there in order to hire. So you can have a collaboration with a methodological expert, have their expertise in order to further develop your extended abstract. You are not analytical experts. That's why analytical experts are there, statisticians are there, decision makers, decision science people are there. So you can hire them, no problem. And also you are not language experts. You are not language experts because native language is not English. Most of us, for most of us. So that's why those expertise is there in order to hire, in order to have some collaborations. There is a limitation of the word count for this section as well. At MURS, we restrict these sections to a maximum of basically 200 words. It can be between 200 to 300 words, depending on the conference, guidelines of the conference. You are asking one question. I would like to answer that. So can we use WSR with the special reference in title instead of with the special reference to? So you can't use, because this expanded version should be there at the first place, where you cannot include it in the title. So you have to mention with the special reference to or with full colon evidence from. So you can have a simplest version for that. So you can't use WSR because by simply looking at it, we can't say, what do you mean by WSR? We do not know WSR without reading your manuscript. In order to have that, at the first place, you need to have the expanded version. You can have it on abstract or in the introduction. So the next section, that is the results and discussion. So here you have to present your results basically in a summary form. Most of the time we can see that the statistical output has been incorporated as it is in the results section. It is one of the major pitfalls we can see in the results section. We hate that. As editors, as reviewers, we hate. If you are putting statistical output as it is without having a meaning. So you should proceed only with the results you can explain in a meaningful manner. Otherwise, you have to skip from those output. For an example, if there is no meaning in descriptive statistics, if there is no meaning, so I advise you to remove the same. Why should you have that if there is no meaning? Accordingly, you have to present only the representative results with relevant discussion. Another important point is that you should not hide results with the purpose of saving them for another paper. So 1 minute, bear up with 1 minute because there is an electricity issue here. 1 minute, give me 1 minute. So welcome back to the session. So we were discussing about results and discussion. Here I highlighted that. So you should not provide the results if there is no meaning. So you have to skip that. Another important point is that sometimes most of the researchers, we see that they tend to hide the results with the purpose of saving them for another paper. So another paper, another extended abstract or another manuscript. By doing so, you will lose evidence in order to support your conclusion, and it will hinder the value and also contribution of your study. You have to remember that. So most of the people ask the difference between results and discussion. Here I would like to shed some lights on that as well. Discussion is basically devoted to explaining what the results mean. For an example, if you are investigating two phenomena, A and B, so through a regression, you realize that the p-value is lesser than 0.05. So that is the statistical output. So that is the results. Since the p-value is less than 0.05, we can say that there is a relationship between A and B. That is the results. So what is the discussion then? By simply looking at the coefficient of the respective variable, so we can say the negative or positive impact, and also degree of impact. If we change by 1%, what will be the change in the dependent variable? Degree of change, we can discuss that. Not only within the results, but also under the discussion. Under the discussion, you can highlight that there is a significant positive impact from A and B, and A on B, so that these researchers also found in a similar context. If there is a contradiction, you have to highlight the contradiction and you have to explain why is it that. So that is the discussion. What the results mean, that is the discussion. That is the discussion. This is one of the most important sections of your extended abstract. Here, basically, you have the chance to sell your data. You have the chance to sell your data. What is an amazing point here? You have to sell your data. That is the results and discussion section. You have to use subheadings as per the objectives and or research questions or hypotheses in order to keep results of the same type together. So then the readers can read it as a clear and easy to read, easy to understand story. In order to make a story, keep a flow on it. Try to make a flow. That is really essential. I experienced that most of the articles are being rejected since the discussion part is really weak. Here you have to make the discussion only correspondent to the results, but you should not reiterate the same. You should not reiterate. In addition to that, you have to compare your findings with the previous studies. If there are disagreements, as I emphasized earlier, here what you have to do is you should not ignore them. So you have to do is you have to confront it and convince the reader that you are correct or better, or explain the difference and why is this. It is simple as that. Be genuine. That will help you to derive some form of originality in your research. There is a word limit for the research and discussion section as well. In MURS, we prepare basically 400 words. Most of the conferences, they prepare 400 to 500 words. So the next section of your extended abstract, that is the conclusion and implications. So in the conclusion, I would like to highlight that this is not a place to repeat the same thing, not to repeat the discussion, not to repeat the results. What you have to do is you have to conclude your findings in a meaningful manner. Here you have to tell how your work advances the field from the present state of knowledge and practice. it is really difficult to evaluate your work without having a clear conclusion. And in the meantime, implications are also important. So what add value to the practice? What add value to the society? What add to the policymakers? That is really important. And that will have impact on the acceptance decision. So conclusion, that is really essential. That is really essential. As I stated here, basically, you should not repeat the abstract or repeat the introduction section. If you are writing a manuscript, full paper, you should not repeat the abstract in the conclusion and vice versa. Since this is an extended abstract, you should not repeat the discussion, you should not repeat the introduction. But you can add summary and conclusion, including the implications. It is required to have a clear scientific justification for your work and indicate possible applications and extensions. In addition to that, so as I explained earlier, you have to emphasize on the implications to the practitioners, society, and or to the policymakers. Here you can highlight value of your research to the other stakeholders, which is complementary. So you can, if you can add value to the stakeholders, that is complementary. Discuss those implications. Organizers of the conferences, editors, reviewers, they love to see that. I advise you to use this space to emphasize the implication part and the conclusion part. In addition to that, you should also suggest some future experiment in one line, if you wish to do so. But in most of the extended abstract, we can't see future directions are there, but you can add one sentence under the conclusion and implication if there is a significant advancement is needed. Significant advancement is needed. The next section, that is basically the references. So there is some. That is the references. Here I would like to spend some valuable time on the references. As editors, we see most of the mistake in the references than any other part of the extended abstract. So we can see that there are so many mistakes in the references. Here we can see 4 major problems in your references. So as an editor who work in different journals, I see these 4 problems in most of the manuscripts submitted to the journals. So more than 70% of the abstract or 70% of the articles that contains mistakes in the references that reflect who you are. So in order to showcase that you are a good researcher, first thing you have to do is you have to reconcile your references and make no mistake in the reference list and also in the in-text citations body. So that is really essential. What are the 4 major problems I see in references? I would like to shed some lights on that as well. First, some authors, they include full references which are not included as in-text citations in the body of the text. So you may have full references, but it is not there in the in-text citations in the body. So some additional full references are there. So what is the purpose? What you have done was basically here, meaning that you copy the references from a thesis or dissertation and put as it is. So the extended abstract that should contain only the references, only the in-text citations that captured in the body. So full reference list should contain only that. That is really essential, not only in the extended abstract, but also in full manuscript. Full manuscript. The second problem I see in references is that authors miss full references of some of the in-text citations. You may have some in-text citations in the body of the text, but that is not there in the full reference list. Here, meaning that you are adding some important literature when you are further developing your paper, but you do not remember to incorporate those added references to the full reference list. So what you have to do now? There are two issues. There are two issues. One is additional references are there. Other one is you have missed some important references. In-text citations are there in the body of the text, but full references are not there. You have to divide your manuscript into two, take a separate reference list, and you have to reconcile all the references. If you have additional references, you should remove. If there are no references, if you have missed references in your full reference list, you have to add those. Do that reconciliation before submitting your extended abstract or full paper to the conference. That is really essential. I discussed two major issues we see in references. The third issue which I see in developing your reference is that authors submit the papers with incomplete references. Most of the time, we can see references without volume numbers, without issue numbers, without page numbers if it is a journal. If it is a journal, you should have, at the end, you should have the page number. Before that, you should have issue number. Before that, you should have volume number. Before that, you should have the journal name. Before that, you should have the title of that paper. Before that, you should have the year of publication. Before that, you should have the names. If it is a journal. So, if you are, making some incomplete references, it reflects that you are not a good researcher. You can be a recognized person, a recognized researcher in the world. But if you are doing mistakes in references, that is the first point we can identify that you are not a good researcher indeed. The editors, they can basically have a judgment of your work by simply looking at the references. As editors, what we do is basically we will have a look at the abstract and see whether there is a significant contribution, and we slightly go through the introduction and conclusion along with the references. By looking at the references, we can say if the researcher is good or bad. So don't give that chance to reflect yourself by having mistakes in your reference list. The fourth problem which I see, you are not adhering to the particular referencing style prepared by the conference or journal. That is one of the more major annoying problems we see. So, for an instance, we are at MURS, we prepare 7th edition of APA. If you are preparing your manuscript, extended abstract, in line with the 6th edition of the APA, which reflect all the names in the in-text citations, all the names. If it is a 3-author paper, Dewasiri, then David, Abraham, within bracket 2022. So APA 6th edition is that. So in 7th edition, so what you can say is Dewasiri et al. In 2022. So if we prepare 7th edition, you have to go ahead with the 7th edition, not the 6th edition. If the conference is adhering to the Harvard referencing style, don't put your references in APA style. So in addition to that, you have to avoid excessive self-citations. We can see most of the researchers in the South Asian region. If we see an article, so we can see excessive amount of self-citations, so that you have to get rid of these mistakes if you really want to publish in a top tier conference or a journal. At last, I'd like to shed some lights on the cover letter as well. So Ganesh, you're asking, could you please repeat 4 things in references? 4 things is that, number 1 is that, so you should include all the references in the full reference list if you have that in-text citation in the body. First thing is that if there is a citation, in-text citation in the body of the test, so you should have full citation at the full reference list. That is the number 1. You should not miss full references for the in-text citations. Number 2 is that you may have some additional full references which you have not cited in the body. Additional references are there. You have to remove those. Third thing is that incomplete references. So if you are citing a journal, so you should have basically page number, issue number, volume number, journal name, title of the paper, year, and also names of the authors. That is essential. It is a journal. If it is a journal, don't make incomplete references. So most of the time we can see that you may submit papers with incomplete references. So editors, they need to search. So what is the volume? What is the issue? What is the page number? Is that an editor's work? No, they will easily reject the paper if the references are not good. The 4th thing is that you should adhere to the specific referencing style prepared by the journal or conference. If the conference is willing to have APA 7th edition, please adhere to the APA 7th edition guideline. So I think you are clear on that now. So another researcher is asking another question. So how many references need an extended abstract approximately, sir? You should limit your references because there is a limitation in the word count. You can have maximum of 5 to 6 references, not more than that in an extended abstract. So you should identify what are the most important references, what are the most important literature you should have. That is a challenge basically. That is a challenge. So I think that's one person is writing on the board. So I request you to not to do that. Because
Dewasiri, so adding to the number of references in MURS, we expect you to write 5 references, 5 most important references.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Rasika. So I'm doing this session with the discussion with the questions as well. So the last part of the discussion today, that is basically the cover letter. Do we need to have a cover letter for our extended abstract? What do you think? Yes, it is necessary to have a cover letter. It is necessary to have a cover letter. So cover letter, you should view that as job application letter. This is the place you can sell your work. In a job application letter, what you should do, you should mention your most experience, your qualification, this and this. So you are emphasizing your skills, experiences, and qualifications. Similar to the job application letter, you have to highlight some key points on the cover letter as well. Here, you have to highlight why did you submit this manuscript to this conference, mentioning what would make your manuscript special to the conference, what sort of value addition is there, how your studies different from other studies. In addition to that, you can mention special requirements as well. If you see that, so for an example, if you do not wish your work or wish your manuscript to be reviewed by certain reviewers and any conflict of interest, you can mention in the cover letter. So that is the place where you can basically address those issues. But you have to understand that most editors that basically, 1 minute. So you have to understand most editors, they will not basically reject a manuscript purely because of the cover letter is bad. But it is good to have a good cover letter. Good cover letter may accelerate the editorial process of your manuscript. You should understand that. Finally, I would like to highlight that by applying these strategies which I have discussed, so by applying these strategies together, so you can have a ticket for a conference. So I have not covered the everything due to the time limitation, but I hope that you learn something new from this session. So I wish you all the best, and I expect that you will submit your papers to the MURS 2022 in order to have some value addition to the conference. So thank you very much for listening. If you have any questions, I can answer now. So most of the questions I answered during the session itself. So if there are questions, so we will wait for 1 or 2 minutes and answer it.
Prof. Dewasiri, I have a small thing that you can clarify this. Say, we have experienced that some of the authors they complete their undergraduate research or MSc or MBA. So then what they do is we have seen that the same paper, like same research, they cut and paste into a document. And they try to send it. Okay, yes. You have mentioned it, but if you can mention a little bit more about it and how this might impact negatively to the extended abstract that you submit.
Yes. So I would like to set some lights on it as well. The reason is that, so if you are tend to cut and paste the headings and subheadings from your dissertation or thesis, we can see that in most of the occasions in conferences and also in journals as well. So if you are doing so, it is subjected to the desk rejection, meaning that you are not adhering to the submission guidelines. So in any conference, we do have specific guidelines in order to follow. So you have to adhere to these specific guidelines. So in an extended abstract, in MURS, we prepare that. So you will basically do your extended abstract within the limit of 1,100 to 1,300 maximum word count with 3 to 4 pages maximum. 4 pages maximum with names, title. There is a limitation on the word count on the title. So with names, with the introduction, with 300 word count, with methodology with 200 word count, then again results and discussion with 400 word count, and conclusion and implication with 200 word count. And also MURS that is highlighted on the referencing style as well. They prepare APA 7th edition, so that you have to adhere to these guidelines. Don't cut and paste from your dissertation or thesis, meaning that it reflects that you are not a good researcher, you are not listening to the guidelines, you are not respecting the guidelines. If you are not respecting the guidelines, meaning that there will be a desk rejection on the abstract you have submitted. So that you have to adhere to the same, you have to respect the conference, respect the journal. So their expectation should be reached.
Thank you
very much
for that description.
Yes, there is one question on, no, that is not a question. That is their opinion. So thank you very much. If there are any other questions, we can answer. Or
Sir, one question. This is Dr. Raja from India.
Yes.
How you in your discussion you have mentioned about collaborative research paper publication.
Yes.
So could you give some kind of best practices how we can approach the other end collaborator?
Yes.
So what is your strategy that
Yes.
if you could
give
some suggestion input on that, we can follow your footsteps also.
So
Since
thank
we
you
are
very
really
much. Thank you very
researchers.
much, Dr. Raja, for your wonderful question. So most of the researchers, they tend to collaborate with other researchers, expertise in the field, not only in the domestic context, but in the international context. They would love to collaborate. But the question is how to collaborate. So you ask how to emphasize on how to collaborate. First thing I should emphasize that is, so first you should have some kind of understanding on what sort of contribution you do have in your research. What sort of contribution? Is there a originality? Is there a novelty? Is there an original contribution? If you can understand that there is a kind of originality in your research, so that what you have to do is you can have some kind of understanding that if you invite a collaborator for the project, so there will be a positive response. There will be a positive response. So I shared one of my experiences with regard to collaborations you could remember. So when I was an early career researcher in 2014, so I was trying to make some collaborations with top giants in the field. So at that time, I was basically I was a researcher without a citation, without a single citation on my Google Scholar or whatever profile. So I was not a good researcher. I was an early career researcher who was learning the research methods. So at that time, what I did was basically, so what was the practice I followed was, so I identified that there is a gap, there is a contribution if you do this research through data triangulation approach, and I identify who are the people interested in my area. So in order to have that understanding, you can go through your reference list and identify who are the people who are publishing in that phenomenon. So who are the top giant people who are publishing in that phenomenon? So identify those people and write to them, emphasizing that you are so and so. So I'm doing a research on this. So the original contribution is this. So I would like to have some collaboration for this paper. So you can enlighten on which stage your research is in. So if there is original contribution, so most of the time we can expect a positive response. So that is one of the best practices we can follow in order to have a collaboration with an eminent researcher in the field. thank you very much for that wonderful question, Dr. Raja. So I think I have answered your question.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much. I will contact you, sir. Soon we will have a collaborative work.
Thank you very much, Dr. Raja. So
Yeah.
is it, Kausi, you're asking, is it negatively affect if we bid or less than the defined word limit? I'm looking forward to my first conference. So as I stated, you can either have 10% more or 10% less. No problem with regard to that, Pudha. So, so we can't limit at the word count. So most of the conferences, they allow 10% more or 10% less. Sometimes 10 to 15% to 20% they allow sometimes. So you can write to the organizing committee and have a view on it. So and have some kind of approval from them in order to have additional word count, but not more than 20%. Not more than 20%. That is not acceptable.
Professor Jayantha, added to that, like sometimes when you write extended abstract first time, you tend to write more, and we do have writing more syndrome. That is, we believe that especially South Asians believe that
So
you have to write more than not.
My supervisor once said, Dr. Rasika, so Professor Baker once said, if you are writing more, so more mistakes.
Yes.
So there are more mistakes. If you are writing more, you can have more mistakes. So I could remember that first paper which I have submitted to Professor Baker. He is an eminent professor in the finance field. Who has introduced so many theories in the finance discipline. So first paper I submitted to him in 2015. So that is with 13,000 word count. So I received a revision from him. So he has done some edits. So it reflects that the word count was around 8,998. So the journal, we were focusing that basically their word limit is 9,000 words, 7,000 to 9,000. So he has limited it to 8,998. In the meantime, he advised me, Jayantha, the key to write is to edit, then again edit, then edit. So if you are doing edit more, so more edits, meaning that you can have some good product at the end.
Yes, actually, since you all are writing for the first time, most of the undergraduates, so get the assistance of your supervisor, get it checked, and if you can give it to one of your good friends to look at it again and see what unnecessary things are in the extended abstract. So there can be lots of repetitions when we write in the initial stages, that we write the same thing in different sections sometimes. So then you can avoid those things, and if you make a try, you can restrict your extended abstract to 4 pages. So in MURS case, it's 4 pages. Please try to achieve that, and
yes,
we'll ensure that you will have a quality review also.
Yes, you can. For an example, so for PhD researchers, we do have 80,000 word count, 80,000 word count. So in 3MT competitions, 3-minute competitions, we have to limit our full PhD into 3 minutes. So that is more challenging, but you can do so. Similarly, you can, write your extended abstract within the limit. So if you, avoid repetitions and so on, as stated by Dr. Rasika, so you can do a wonderful job.
Thank you, Professor. If there are any other 1 or 2 questions, we can go. So unless I invite Kavinder.
Yes, it seems no questions. Thank you so much, dear sirs, for your valuable and insightful discussion. So as an higher education institute all the time we value your feedback. Therefore, we have already shared the link of your feedback form. Be good enough to fill it. So that will make us in comfortable zone when planning and developing our future sessions too. So before we go to the formal conclusion, I would like to remind you all, this time also MURS 2022 has created a great platform to share and disseminate your valuable research findings, and the accepted extended abstracts will be published in the MURS 2022 conference proceedings, as well as the authors of the best extended abstracts submitted and presented at the MURS will be invited to submit the full paper for the popular journal publications like South Asian Journal of Marketing, published by Emerald and Sabaragamu University of Journal, and as well as Asian Journal of Management Studies, South Asian Journal of Tourism and Hospitality, Asian Journal of Finance, which were managed by the Sabaragamu University of Sri Lanka. Therefore, I warmly welcome you all to go through the important dates of the research conference via the shared link in the chat box, as well as I highly believe this conference will add more colors to your profile. Now I would like to invite Ms. Amita to show the gratitude to the persons who contributed to the success of today's program.
Thank you, Kavinda sir. Good evening, dear ladies and gentlemen. It's my privilege to have been asked to deliver the vote of thanks on this occasion of successful completion of the webinar on how to write an extended abstract with 270 plus participants. I, on behalf of the organizing committee of Management Undergraduate Research Session 2022, Faculty of Management Studies, Sabaragamu University of Sri Lanka, extend a very hearty word of thanks to the main speaker of the session today, Professor Jayantha N Dewasiri. Sir, it was indeed an insightful session. At the outset, I would like to express my profound gratitude to the Faculty of Management Studies, Sabaragamu University of Sri Lanka, headed by Professor Atulasi Nyanapala, who is a prominent scholar in academia and our greatest strength in expanding and developing the faculty to the next level. And also, I would like to express our special gratitude to Professor M.S.M. Aslam, the chair, and all other members of the Research and Publication Unit of the Faculty of Management Studies, Sabaragamu University of Sri Lanka, for their unconditional support. I would like to express our sincere obligation to all members of the organizing committee, MURS 2022, Chair, Dr. Rasika Priyankara, Secretary, Ms. Vidyalani Muthusamy, and all the department coordinators for their commitment to making this webinar a success. I would like to express our gratitude to Professor Priyan, the director, and all other staff members of the Center for Computer Studies of Sabaragamu University of Sri Lanka for their continuous support to organize the technical aspects of the webinar. Also, I would like to extend my sincere thanks to all the participants, all the senior professors, senior academics, researchers, and research students for their active participation. You all are the strength of this event. Last but not least, we really appreciate and gratitude our academic partners, sponsors, and media partners. And Kavinda sir, thank you so much for moderating the session. Thank you so much again. Have a great day.
Thank you so much, Amita Ms. According to Anton Chekhov, knowledge is of no value unless you put it into practice. So I would warmly invite you all to test the practicability and the applicability of your newly generated knowledge by submitting your research papers to our MURS 2022. By keeping a promise to meet you all with your latest findings in the technical sessions of MURS 2022, I would like to formally wrap up the session. Thank you so much. Be smart and stay safe.